Okay, 10 minutes in, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, our stories, our stories for this week are a little bit different than some of the other ones that we've looked at. Our very first week, we looked at The Goose That Laid the Golden Egg and The Fisherman's Wife, Brothers Grimm story. So, two very old stories. Then we got a little bit more recent last week with George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, stories or myths around them. And then this week, we're looking at two movies. I promise we'll go back to classic stories in the future. But this week, we're looking at two movies. The first movie that I want us to think about is Home Alone. By show of hands, who has seen Home Alone? Okay, just making sure that you are, in fact, American citizens. Um, Before we get into anything of theological depth, I am interested. How many traps from Home Alone can we name? I have them all on this handout. An iron to the face. After which one's Harry and which one's Marv? Marv is tall. Harry is Joe Pesci. Okay. Hot door handle. Yep. There are paint buckets. Y'all are doing great. Yeah, I think bricks is the second one. That's when they lost all creativity. What if we just throw bricks at his face? What'd you say? We got the iron. Oh, the tarantula. That's got to be on here somewhere. Oh, that's a good point. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I was just reading that and don't remember that scene, but well, encyclopedic knowledge of this is impressive. And he cuts the thing. Is that on here? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Uh, Slips and tumbles down on his back to the ice-covered stairway entrance to the basement. Falls on ice. Crow hits his head with his own crowbar. All right. Gets shot in the forehead with a BB gun. Did we mention? His right hand is severely burned. We said that one on the doorknob. Someone said that. Yeah. Gets his. Did we talk about? Did someone mention the blowtorch? Okay. Sorry. That's to my mind the most absurd one. Okay. I think we got all of them. I don't see the. It's in. Is it the second movie or the first movie where he gets electrocuted? You see a skeleton for a second. Is that the second one? Okay. Really jumped the shark. Okay. Pretty good, guys. I'm impressed by y'all's knowledge. The fact that someone said micro machines, didn't even know that's what that was called. Uh, that's what's on the list. Yeah, that might be a part of it. Okay. We could do that for the entire class because that's plenty fun. But in order to push us closer to what we are supposed to be spending time on, what do we take? What are some of the main point of the movie is to have a good time watching Marv and Harry hurt themselves for like 45 minutes out of the movie. what do we imagine are the actual themes of the movie? What is the movie trying to say? What's important to the movie? The first Home Alone. Okay. Yeah. So the very beginning of the movie is all this time spent with his family right before their big trip, and he feels left out, ostracized. I like that word. There's the great scene where there's Kevin causes like a mess somehow. I can't remember exactly how it happens. You get the uncle turning around to him. Look what you did, you little jerk. Um, and so okay, so he feels distant from his family. And then what's he do? That's sort of the impetus for the rest of the movie. Yeah, he makes a wish. I can't remember the exact wording either. Makes a wish that his whole family was gone, or that they would disappear. And then, sure, as he's in the attic, no one wakes him up. They're all gone in the morning, and he's really excited, right? He's excited. They're all gone. There, what else do we see in the movie? Justice for uh, the wet bandits. Yeah, sticky bandits. Yeah, that's the second movie. Okay. I'm glad I have extras on these movies. It makes it easy. Okay, so maybe a part of that being ostracized is what gave him this. That would be what a normal person would do. I think in the first movie they address this. I think the second movie it's a little bit looser. He takes this upon himself. Um, there seems to be maybe an element in this movie of the need for growth and facing your fears to develop autonomy in some sense. Though I think that's secondary, mainly because Kevin McAllister is clearly already very self-sufficient. Goes shopping on his own and all sorts of things. So he's doing just fine. But there is this element of growth. The main point, though, seems to be this idea he feels distant from his family. How does the movie end? Yes. Okay. So they catch him in like the house across the street, and then but the neighbor comes and whacks him with the shovel, which I think is like the last shot of the movie is him looking through the window and he sees that neighbor's is it his daughter or his son? Um, it's his son, and then but has the granddaughter that he doesn't get to see. Yeah. Isn't that just a great part of the movie? Yeah, teaching older man to be brave. And what happens, like right before we see that with the old man? What happens with Kevin wakes up in the morning on I think Christmas Day. There's still no one in the house, and then what happens? His mom comes home. He hears her behind him, turns around, and there she is, and then they embrace. So this is sort of the climax of the movie. The emotional climax of the movie is Kevin finally being able to embrace his mother. Does that door lock just anytime it's shut? Oh, interesting. Okay, this is great. Let's move on to our second movie, The Wizard of Oz. By show of hands, who has seen The Wizard of Oz? All right. I'm curious. This is mainly for this group over here. Do you you suppose that The Wizard of Oz is the oldest movie? I guess straight on. Is The Wizard of Oz the oldest movie that you've seen? They are the same year, both 1939. See? 46. Anyone seen a movie older than 1939? I assume folks over here are more likely to have seen the movie. I was just thinking about this while I was making notes for this class, that for most, The Wizard of Oz is unique in that it's a movie that's still being watched by people, whereas there's a lot of great movies from before 1939, many great movies from before 1939, but they don't get watched as, you don't sit down with your children and watch them like you would with The Wizard of Oz. So I imagine for most people, The Wizard of Oz is the oldest movie they've seen. Anyways, that's not what the class is about. The class is rather about, what are the themes of The Wizard of Oz? What's the movie about? A dream. Okay. She has this dream, and who's in the dream? Say it again. Okay, so the lion, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow are played by the farmhands in on the farm. I don't think that the two other main characters from the farm are in the movie, are they? Annie Yim and Uncle. So yeah, the witch and the wizard are two other people in town, but Annie Yim and Uncle Henry, I think, they only exist in the real world. Yeah, what else is going on in the movie? So there's clearly a parallel between real life, the people that she interacts with day to day, and this dream that she has. Okay, so she spends the rest of the movie trying to get home. What's the... yeah. So... I'm trying to think if it actually even ever bites her, or if she says that it bites her because she doesn't like the dog chasing her cat. But yeah, so there's this disagreement with. Did I write it down? She has a great name. It's. Oh, does anyone know the name of the lady who is the witch? You're not. We were just talking about not getting on your phone. Someone should look it up on their phone and tell us what is her name. Oh, yes, that's it. And okay, so we have this disagreement. She goes to her family. I assume y'all haven't watched it as recently as I have. She goes to her family to get to either be consoled or just get help with this situation, and they are busy. They're doing farm work. They don't have time for Dorothy. And so she gets a little frustrated with her family in this regard, and she sings what's the iconic song from the movie, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which is a song about she doesn't want to be here anymore. She wants to be somewhere over the rainbow, somewhere a different world. And then she gets to do that, but how does the movie end? She wants to go home. What's the famous line that she says? No place like home. She taps her shoes together. I feel like I should be excused for not knowing this, but this was pointed out to me later in life, that the significance of heels in the movie. This is the women in the group can confirm this. That this, at least in times gone by, this was a significant part of coming of age, of growing up, is that you get to wear heels, where you, maybe when you're younger, you don't get to do that. And so there's also this element of she wants to grow up. She doesn't want to be dependent on these people around her. There's a scene early in the movie when she's walking on fence posts on the farm and she falls into the pig pen. And I think I know his name. Zeke, who plays the Cowardly Lion, he jumps in, saves her. But yeah, it's this need that she's in constant need of rescue. Okay. One other scene in the movie that I think helps us get at the most important stuff is her seeing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and in the end, there's no place like home. She realizes this is where she needs to be, is with her family. Probably the emotional low point of the movie, a scene that I was terrified of as a kid, is she's in the witch's castle with the crystal ball. She starts crying, and then suddenly her Aunt Em shows up in the crystal ball and says, Dorothy, where are you? We're looking for you. And she starts crying for Annie M, come and help me. I'm trying to get back to you, and I can't. And then Annie M is replaced by the Wicked Witch, just making fun of her, like in a way that like my brothers would do to me. Annie M, Annie M. It's great. Anything else from The Wizard of Oz that y'all think is significant for understanding the movie? Yeah. I don't have anything for that, but that is one of the interesting things of the movie is he's built up this whole time. Has anyone read the book? I've never. Is that also part of the book that he's not real? Because is Oz real in the book? Or is it a dream like it is in the movie? Does anyone know? Y'all aren't big Oz heads. Okay. Yes. Okay. So everything's sort of laid out for him, which I remember hearing at some point in high school that this has something to do with the gold standard. I don't know. That's not one of the themes that we're trying to bring out for this class. Okay. So there's different things going on in these movies, obviously, as any good complex story. They're a little bit more nuanced than the stories that we've spent the last 2 weeks looking at. That said, I want us to focus on this theme of home and family. What do we think that these movies are trying to suggest about the idea of family? Yeah, so in both movies, there's this desire to get away from your family, to get away from home, specifically for the Wizard of Oz. But then by the end, they come around to, no, this is actually where I'm supposed to be. These are the people that matter. Yeah. I have not, but I'll follow it. Yeah. As we do for all these classes, what are some biblical stories that we think center on family as well? Prodigal son. This is a big one. And how does that just state kind of what's obvious? How does that involve family? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get something of a wrinkle with the brother there at the end, but for the most part, the story is mostly about he wants to get out, and then he realizes, no, that's where I need to be, and then his father does embrace him, so he is accepted back into the family. What else? What are other stories? So he goes to run away from his family. Um, does that one have a good like? There's one. There's the Esau part of it. Yeah. just want y'all to know that when I make these classes, I get very worried. Like, am I missing just like an obvious Bible story for these? Because last week, as y'all may recall, we did the stories about honesty. Like, I can't think of any Bible stories that are about someone being honest. It's like that can't be right. But then no one else came up with good examples either, so I felt all right. My 3 examples I have here: Jacob, Joseph, and the prodigal son. So feeling pretty good. What else? Other stories. See, didn't have that one written down. I'll write it down for next time. That one, I mean, that's probably more relevant than some of these. How does Ruth involve family?
So she really didn't have a family, but then she married into one, but then they all died, and so then she decided to, instead of lose the married family that she had, she actually like stayed with the Egyptian one. Why don't we switch her?
No.
Yeah, so she stayed in so she stayed with the mother-in-law, and then she ended up like finding family with the mother-in-law, but then also got her own family
Yes.
later.
Which presumably Naomi is included in. She didn't say beat it. Yeah, so that one, lost family, found in another family.
Did Moses work?
You tell me. Explain.
Well, he was a Jew raised in the Jew, born into it.
Yes. Oh, and but then
His
he.
mother hid him, and he was adopted by the Pharaoh. But as he grew up and he learned about his heritage, he wanted to get back to it, and then we see all the trouble to get there.
So he's part of another family. Presumably, it's a good home. It's a royal home, and yet he still wants to go back. That is interesting. For like the prodigal son and Joseph, those 2 stories, though they both involve betrayal of some sort, the emotional climax of both stories is the reuniting of family. This is what is central to couple and maybe some of the other stories that we've mentioned. It's that, okay, what's the goal here is this reuniting of the family. Several years ago, I was working in Little Rock, and I was one of my friends at work is significantly older than me, but we would talk a lot. And I remember him making a comment about he used idiom, what do you call it, proverb, yeah. He's talking about how he doesn't agree with the idea that blood is thicker than water. Maybe this is just me, I had never heard that before, or maybe if I had heard it, I didn't realize what it was trying to communicate. So I remember him saying it. So first, having to understand what this means. Blood is thicker than water. Someone help us out. What's the idea being communicated? Yeah. That's a much more succinct way than I have. The importance of family is central to this idea. And that your family bonds trump the bonds outside of your family, or relationships, obligations you might have outside your family. And he did not like this idea. For him, he thought my family's wronged me in several ways. He still was close to many of them, but in no way should those relationships trump the relationships of his close friendships. Those were more significant relationships. And I think about that very frequently. One, just about how that plays out in my friend Scott's life, but also is that insight from Scott true for everyone? That this blood is thicker than water. That seems to maybe be an underlying principle that's closely connected, at least, to what we see in Home Alone or The Wizard of Oz. And it seems to kind of line up with some of these biblical stories that we just communicated. It might match up pretty well with the Moses story, in which it looks like Moses' life is pretty good, and yet what really matters is getting back to his biological family. I'm curious, what do y'all think about this?
I think of those stories in the Bible, but then also there are other examples of that. Maybe I'm sure in scripture too, I think it's the Godfather, which is not a mom, but the other piece of family, and they harm all of these other people in the Bible. They're terrible people, but at the same time, you kind of resonate with them because they do.
Yeah, isn't that the most redeeming part of gangsters? Is like, but at least they're loyal to their family. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you can drop in a heartbeat for a long time friend and something terrible to you. Your family should be forgiven fairly quickly
Mm-hmm.
and move forward. And that just, that shows that an emotional intelligence you wouldn't hold that type of person responsible as long as a friend is going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can forgive both and move on. Well,
I think there's something too, on the thicker than water, but I think, I just think about Jesus saying, who are my mother and brothers? Except the people who believe in the will of God. And I think, often in our society, we have made family, almost an idol that says family no matter what. And that's not what Jesus says.
Yeah. Yeah. What does Jesus say about this? Who are mother and brothers? Are those the relationship he says? It also, talks about, someone says, let me go bury my father. He says, no, let the dead bury the dead.
well, there's supposed to tell you what it is.
If anyone does not come to me and hate my father.
But there's still a connection between me and my brothers, or my mother, or whatever. Even a cousin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've grown up together, you've experienced all of his life together. It's different than a friend I have with somebody. It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to my mind, the Christian message here is complicated. It's hard to discern. On one hand, it's been Christian teaching for a long time, especially in more traditional societies, so like medieval Christianity and before, that we have these sort of concentric circles of obligation, that your greatest obligations are to your family. Then beyond that might be to your close friends, then beyond that to your local community, and then you've less obligation to maybe your nation, the country that you live in, but you still have more obligation to them than you would to something outside of that. There's these concentric circles. And then we get stories like the prodigal son, like Joseph, like Jacob, like Moses, like Ruth. But then we get these claims that that you're supposed to leave your family for the sake of something else. Sake of marriage is one, leave your mother and father, but also Jesus says that you have to hate your all of the different family relationships. You have to hate someone in your family and take up your cross. There's also this idea that the church becomes your family and not those related to you by blood. One thing I love about BB, I think I grew up in a fairly traditional Church of Christ context, but it was not typical to call people brother and sister. They might occasionally call them by that. But that's one of my favorite things being here is people do that a lot. I say brother so-and-so, sister so-and-so. Go ahead.
Kind of interesting thing about the blood and water comment. Because I read something just the other day.
But the original quote on that is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. And so it actually meant the opposite of what it means now. And so it's kind of interesting. It's like been shortened to blood thicker than water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously we all think family over, one family. But that actually means 2 every year because of in your life is a stronger bond than your family. So that's kind of an interesting twist to that.
Yeah. Changes
Think
everything.
about it from a Christian standpoint, like I've been talking about Jesus, and that kind of resonates more with that.
Yeah. What do y'all think? With our time remaining, I just want us to circle around this idea. Do we feel like that our family obligations are secondary, tertiary, or do they feel like no, they ought to be primary? That they are the sort of folks that we forgive them fastest.
I think,
I want some
I
disagreement.
think, if you're gonna compare them back to the movies we've been talking about, an important point is, to me, that when it was just, these are my family, so I'm supposed to love them sort of a situation, both, Kevin and Dorothy sort of were like, no, thank you. They had to sort of come back to their family as a choice,
Mm-hmm.
as something they chose, not as something that was forced on them by birth. And I think that is relevant to the conversation.
So family might be particularly important, but maybe what's more important is the group that you choose. Does that seem fair? What else do y'all think?
An added layer, I think, in all this, and just a personal impact from my standpoint, is like when it gets really hard with the family relationship, is when there are certain members of that family who tend to walk away and make wicked choices or very
Sure.
wrong choices. Like, how do you handle that in a situation like that? So I think that one's also really hard too, because you have people in the church and if you're like supporting your spiritual walk, and you have someone in your family who is not on that same journey, like where is your allegiance and all of that?
Mhm.
That's another element.
Yeah, and I'm sure, depending on which person you are you the person who's chosen the wicked path in the family? You probably have different thoughts about what your family's obligation is to you. Yeah.
It's definitely easier to be, like, I lean more towards my family, just because what I've known all my life. If I have one of my family members who is like, kind of saying if they're on the outs and they're having trouble, they're like, I'm gonna be going after them, and I guess it kind of parallels with how we should do about our Christian things as well, like the lost sheep. If we have somebody who's straying away, we should do it all going after them like they're our blood family, and I think it's really hard for us to sometimes see our church family like we see our regular family, which is what we probably should strive for. But I don't know. Definitely need to.
Yeah.
Well, we mentioned this shared experiences growing up in a household is gonna doesn't necessarily cement a bond for everybody, but those common experiences are going. And I understand that sometimes it doesn't unite people. It did for my siblings and I. The hardships we endured together. I'm always gonna, even though I don't see them at all ever. I have a brother who lives 20 minutes away, and I see him maybe twice a year. But the bond that I have with him, and with my sister who lives in Texas, and I never see. There's never going to be anything quite like that because the experiences that we shared as children are never going to be matched by experiences experiences that I share with people in the church, you don't live under my roof,
Mhm.
and I see a few hours a week, you know, and that's gonna be the same.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the mentioning of the intimacy piece because in my story and in my life, like my family, it was not a home. I did not have intimacy with my family. So when I do have intimacy with other families, like that's significant. And so um, my obligation to my family feels different because of the lack of intimacy I've had or had with them. Um, I think some families may not see it as obligation. I would say I know enough to do, right? Like, but then there's like, so there's obligation and then there's desire. And it's like, do I want to drop XYZ to be family member? Maybe no, but I feel obligated, whereas like there's other people on my side like, you want to drop XYZ.
Yeah.
And it's, the difference is like a shared intimacy and a not shared intimacy. So I appreciate you.
We should do a whole class on obligation, though Jeannie may not be here for that. Two things and we're done. One is I wanted us to just consider, we have these two movies that we talked about, Home Alone and Wizard of Oz. It's also worth contrasting those with movies like Harry Potter or Matilda, in which case we have the opposite situation, which is we have bad families. And so the point of these movies is the idea of found family. It's this something that you choose and insert yourself into rather than being born into. To my mind, the easy answer is you're supposed to love your family and look out for them. But if your family causes you to stumble, or if it's between your family and Christ, then obviously you choose Christ. That's sort of, to my mind, the easy answer is, yeah, obviously you have these obligations to your family, but Christ outweighs that obligation. And while I think that's true, it doesn't seem very helpful to me. That the difficult questions are, where is that line? When do we say, oh, this is too much? That my obligation to my family ceases here because of how they treat me or because of the path that they're leading me down. And so while we know the answer, yes, you have an obligation to your family, but your obligation to Christ trumps that. Actually discerning that line, I think, is a difficult thing. And I'm going to leave you with that difficulty to ponder. All right. I'll see y'all next week.